Hello everyone, my name is Kara and today I'm sharing my reaction to Laura Bohannan's essay Shakespeare in the Bush, 1966. This article highlights how cultural worldview shapes interpretation and meaning even when dealing with something that may appear universal like Shakespeare's Hamlet. A quick summary of the article. Bohannan, an American anthropologist, traveled to live among the Tiv people in West Africa. She attempted to tell the story of Hamlet, convinced that its meaning was universal. However, the Tiv elders reinterpreted nearly every event through their own worldview. They dismissed the ghost as an omen from witchcraft and accepted Gertrude's quick remarriage as normal and responsible, and reframed Hamlet's madness as witchcraft. Even Ophelia's drowning was explained differently according to their cultural logic. By the end, the elders told Bohannan that she had misunderstood and that they had taught her the true meaning of the story. This story demonstrates how worldview acts like the lens. What Bohannan saw as betrayal or corruption, the Tiv understood as duty or kinship. Their beliefs about witchcraft, omens, authority, and kin obligations shaped how they interpreted events. For example, Hamlet's madness was not an internal psychological problem, but instead an act of bewitchment, which made perfect sense within their cultural framework. This shows that cultural meaning is not fixed but constructed by people through their worldview. Bohannan's assumption that Shakespeare's meaning was obvious everywhere reveals ethnocentrism. She measured the Tiv's interpretation against her own standard and initially believed they were misinterpreting. In reality, she was the one overlooking how much her own cultural background shaped her understanding. The Tiv elders flipping the interpretation back on her revealed her bias and forced her to recognize that universality cannot be assumed. The story also challenges the belief that one's own cultural values are the right or the best way. For instance, Gertrude's quick remarriage seemed wrong and offensive to Bohannan, but was seen as proper kinship responsibility by the Tiv. The story shows how judgments of right and wrong depend on cultural assumptions, not universal truths. In my own culture, particularly in the American workplace, direct feedback is a normal process. We view it as respectful and efficient. However, someone from my high context culture may see the directness as rude or confrontational. Just as the Tiv reinterpreted Hamlet through their worldview, an outsider may interpret it. Our communication style very differently from how we intended. One best practice for cross-cultural communication is cultural humility and active meaning checking. Instead of assuming my interpretation is correct, I can describe what I saw, share my tentative understanding, then ask the other person for their perspective. This practice creates shared understanding. In the article, Bohannan could have bridged the gap by clarifying what a ghost meant in her cultural versus what an omen meant to the Tiv. This approach fosters mutual respect and avoids misinterpretation. As a distribution team supervisor, I once misinterpreted silence during meetings as disengagement. Later on, I realized that for some team members, silence was a sign of respect and careful listening. Once I reframed silence, I understood that engagement happened in different ways, like one-on-one follow-ups. This mirrors Bohannan's experience with the TIV, where the same behavior, whether silence or remarriage, meant completely different things across cultural contexts. The most significant lesson from this article is the meaning is not delivered. It is negotiated. Communication across cultures requires humility, curiosity, and the willingness to let go of the assumption that our cultural truths are universal. Bohannan's story with the TIV shows that intercultural understanding is possible, but only when we acknowledge that worldview and perception shape every interpretation. I appreciate you all listening to my review on Shakespeare in the Bush. Have a great rest of your evening.